For the past year, I have been on an insane deep dive. I have studied almost every single villain known to the animation universe. I've put them on trial, I've sentenced them in court, and I know everything, and I mean everything, about them.
Penalty!
They are not organized!
So today, let's go over the baddies from Aardman. Let's get into it. 12th, Chief De Silva. Starting us off at rock bottom is Chief De Silva from Arthur Christmas. Her entire contribution to the plot, her grand villainous scheme, is seeing Santa's technologically superior, faster-than-light sleigh zipping around on Christmas Eve and immediately concluding, nope, that's definitely an alien invasion. And what's her measured, tactical response? Does she try to establish communication? Does she, I don't know, look at a calendar and see that it's December 24th? Of course not. She decides the only logical course of action is to scramble multiple fighter jets and launch a full-scale military strike with the intent of blowing Santa Claus and his 8 tiny reindeer into festive confetti. Mom, you are about to single-handedly cancel Christmas for every child on the entire planet because you have the situational awareness of a startled hamster. Let's take this to court. We're charging her with 1 count of attempted deicide of a beloved holiday figure, 7 counts of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon against flying magical caribou, and 1 count of premeditated ruination of global childhood joy. Her defense? I was just following protocol. Yeah, well, your protocol almost resulted in the jolly man in red being turned into reindeer barbecue over the Atlantic. She gets a point for being ridiculously thorough, I guess, but loses a million points for having absolutely zero chill, a complete lack of critical thinking, and for almost committing the single worst party foul in human history. Case dismissed, but she has to write, I will not try to shoot down Santa 500 times on a blackboard. 11. Hector, Raul, and Fernando. Alright, let's talk about our next contestants, a trio of walking shag carpets who are less criminal masterminds, and more, the absolute worst roommates you could possibly imagine. I'm talking about Hector, Raul, and Fernando, the Llama Squad from the Farmers' Llamas. We first meet them at a county fair, where they're being held in a hypnotic trance by a flute player, which is the first red flag. If your entire moral compass can be hijacked by a dude playing a wooden pipe, you're probably not cut out for a life of high-stakes crime. When the music stops, they revert to their factory settings, which is apparently pure unhinged chaos, and proceed to wreck a baking contest. This is where our sweet, naive Shaun the Sheep spots them. Hector, the smug, white-furred leader of this pack of hooligans, offers Shaun a cupcake and a conspiratorial wink. Shaun falls for it. He scams the farmer into buying them, and the moment they set foot on Mossy Bottom Farm, the reign of terror begins. At first, it's just obnoxious frat boy behavior. They beat the sheep at football, which is honestly just embarrassing for the sheep. But then they discover that a flute controls them, and Hector crushes it. They stage a full-blown coup, taking over the farmer's house in a hostile home invasion. They bogart the remote, blast terrible music, and eat everything in sight. They steal all the pillows, forcing the entire flock to sleep standing up like some sort of fluffy, sleep-deprived army. Let's tally up the charges, shall we? Grand theft cupcake, conspiracy to commit farm-based anarchy, but the big one, the home invasion. That's false imprisonment, folks. They held the entire farm hostage with their terrible manners and spit-based projectiles. That's a solid 4 years in the slammer. Plus, mandatory etiquette classes. They are bullies through and through, but their evil plan lacks ambition. Their end goal is to be lazy, messy, and rude in a slightly nicer house. 10th, Agent Red. At the number 10 spot is the woman in black, Agent Red from A Shaun the Sheep movie, Farmageddon. Now we're starting to get into the territory of villains with actual, albeit pathetic, motivations. Agent Red is a fascinating character study in what happens when a minor childhood humiliation is allowed to fester into a taxpayer-funded, lifelong obsession. Here's her sob story. When she was a little girl, she saw a real-life UFO containing the parents of our adorable alien protagonist, Lula. Overjoyed and excited, she drew a picture of it and tried to share her incredible discovery with her classmates. And how did the world reward her for this groundbreaking contribution to science? They laughed at her, pointed, mocked her little crayon drawing, and in that moment, her entire life's purpose was one goal. I'll show them all. She grows up to become the head of the Ministry of Alien Detection, or MAD, which is less of a legitimate government agency and more of a state-sponsored therapy session for her unresolved childhood trauma. When Lula's ship crash lands near Mossy Bottom Farm, It's the moment she's been waiting for. She's so hyper-focused on capturing one small, harmless alien that she becomes a walking liability. During her investigation, she traps one of the hazmat-suited employees. That's false imprisonment and a massive HR violation, which should land her a cool 4 years and a mandatory management seminar. She exhibits extreme cruelty towards a bicycle. That's property destruction. And she chases a sheep and a toddler-like alien up the rickety, shoddily constructed tower of a local theme park called Farmageddon. She does this using a giant, spider-like robotic machine. This isn't just reckless endangerment, it's a flagrant disregard for every safety regulation ever written. That tower is swaying like a drunk at closing time, and she's treating it like her personal jungle gym. She's basically the villain equivalent of someone who brings a bazooka to a squirt gun fight because someone once stole their juice box. Ninth Lord Nuth. At number 9, please put your hands together for the man whose ego is bigger than his entire Bronze Age empire, the one and only Lord Nuth from Early Man. This guy is a magnificent disaster of a human being. His very first move in the film is the villain equivalent of kicking over a kid's sandcastle just because you can. He rolls into the peaceful Stone Age valley with his war mammoths, which are basically furry tanks, and just takes it. He declares the Stone Age over with the smug satisfaction of someone announcing a new flavor of crisps and forcibly evicts Doug and his entire tribe, casting them out into the volcanic, desolate Badlands. In the grand legal tradition of animated justice, this is an act of unprovoked aggression and terrorism against an entire civilization. You can't just declare an entire epoch of human history null and void because you want to mine their backyard for ore. That's a straight-up death sentence in the court of prehistoric law, and the crimes just keep piling up. He kidnaps Dino, who is technically a pig, but emotionally is the tribe's baby brother. That's kidnapping a beloved pet, which carries a 7-year sentence and the eternal scorn of all animal lovers. He then tries to intimidate Doug's tribe into forfeiting the deciding football match. This is a criminal threat, not just against one person, but an entire team of 11 Stone Age underdogs. That's 11 counts, and at 3 years a pop, we're looking at a tidy 33 years behind bars. But Nuth isn't just a bully, he's a shameless cheat. During the big game, when it becomes clear his team of overpaid Bronze Age prima donnas might actually lose, he knocks out the referee and steals his uniform. He then proceeds to make the most biased calls in the history of sport. That's impersonating an official and match fixing, a solid 10-year sentence and a fine of 200 bronze coins. He even assaults the poor ref, Dino the pig, by slapping him with his own rulebook. Add 6 months for assault on a porcine official. But the real truth about Nuth is that he's a massive, quivering coward. The second his superior, Queen Ufifa, shows up and gives him a stern look, he crumples like a wet biscuit. He's all bronze and no brass. His final pathetic defarce is trying to steal the box office earnings while dressed as a mascot. That's grand larceny on top of everything else. Another 25 years. He's a greedy, spineless buffoon who ends up exactly where he belongs, sentenced to hard labor in the very mines he coveted. Poetic justice has never been so satisfying. 8. Trumper. Starting us off with a villain who's more of a petty tyrant than a true terror, it's Trumper, the animal control officer from Shaun the Sheep movie. This guy is basically what happens when you give a control freak with a Napoleon complex, a badge, and a giant claw. He doesn't just dislike animals, he's got a personal vendetta against anything that isn't a regulation-sized human. His patrol vehicle looks like it was designed by a Bond villain who got really into urban planning. He stalks the big city like a grim reaper for stray pets, his eyes scanning for any sign of unsanctioned animal activity. Oh, a squirrel daring to exist outside a tree. To the cage with ye. When Shaun and the flock bumble into his jurisdiction, Trumper sees it as his chance to achieve the perfect capture rate. He nabs Slip, a harmless stray dog, and then Bitzer, the long-suffering sheepdog from the farm. Now, Bitzer is wearing a collar. He clearly has an owner. A normal, non-psychopathic officer would see this as a clue, a lead to reuniting a lost pet with its family. But Trumper? Nah, that would involve paperwork and empathy. 2 things he's clearly allergic to. He just chucks Bitzer in a cage with the rest of the inmates. This is straight-up animal abuse, driven by a pathological need for control. His obsession spirals out of control when he discovers the flock's prison break. He arms himself with an insane, electrified grappling device and hunts them through the city. He trespasses on private property, causes public disturbances, and generally acts with the reckless abandon of a toddler on a sugar high. The chase leads back to Mossy Bottom Farm, where Trumper trespasses again, steals a scythe for dramatic effect, because of course he does, and starts stalking our heroes like a slasher villain. Here's Trumper, and then comes the grand finale of his criminal career. He gets into a tractor, and with full knowledge that the amnesiac farmer is inside the shed, along with the entire flock, he tries to push the whole structure into a massive rock quarry. Let me repeat that. He attempts to murder a human being and an entire flock of sheep to satisfy his petty grudge. That's attempted murder and felony animal cruelty, which should net him life in prison. He also causes tens of thousands of dollars in property damage by destroying the farmhouse. His downfall is a chef's kiss of humiliation, fired from his post and forced to work at a fried chicken joint while wearing a giant chicken costume. A perfectly degrading end for a man whose ego wrote checks his authority couldn't cash. 7. Queen Victoria. In the number 7 spot, it's royalty herself, the pirate-hating, exotic animal-eating monarch from the pirates. In an adventure with scientists, Queen Victoria, oh, this woman. This woman is a piece of work. On the outside, she's the very picture of stuffy 19th century British propriety. Think your strictest grandma, but with a secret lair and a penchant for dodo a la carte. But beneath the layers of lace and that famously unimpressed expression beats the heart of a cold-blooded, diabolical supervillain with a culinary fetish so specific it's terrifying. She hates pirates, not in a "they are a nuisance to our trade routes" kind of way, but in a deep, personal, I want to see them all hang by their britches kind of way. This hatred is only surpassed by her leadership of a secret society of world leaders. And what does this clandestine club do? Do they secretly control the global economy? Do they manipulate world events from the shadows? No, they get together once a year for a gourmet dinner party, where the main course is the rarest, most critically endangered creature they can find. Her entire motivation in the film is to capture Polly, the pirate captain's supposedly extinct dodo, so she can serve the bird at this year's horrifying feast. When the pirate captain, through a series of hilarious misunderstandings, wins the Scientist of the Year award for discovering his own pet, she sees her chance. She tries to persuade him to hand over the dodo, claiming it's for her special petting zoo. This is textbook fraud, a blatant lie to acquire a priceless biological treasure for the purpose of eating it. We're looking at a solid 10 years and punitive damages for that little fib. When her plan is inevitably exposed, she throws Charles Darwin and his monkey butler, Mr. Bobo, out of a window. That's 2 counts of assault, earning her a year in jail. And yes, the monkey absolutely has rights in this court. She slaps poor Darwin around multiple times, adding another year to her sentence. And then comes the big reveal. Her prim and proper dress is actually a mechanical marvel that hides a battle-ready physique, and she whips out a pair of katanas. Wielding deadly weapons with intent to harm is aggravated assault, tacking on another 10 years to her rapidly growing prison term. Her eventual defeat, being marooned on an island with other rare animals who suddenly realize she's the rarest delicacy around, is a fittingly ironic end for one of Aardman's most unexpectedly formidable and utterly bizarre villains. Maybe she'll finally get a taste of her own medicine, literally. 6. Victor Quartermain. At number 6 is the toupee-wearing pompous hunter with a golden gun, the one and only Victor Quartermain from The Curse of the Were-Rabbit. This guy is the absolute distillation of every terrible, upper-class snob you've ever had the misfortune of meeting. He's the sort of fellow who buys the biggest yacht just so he can complain about the price of fuel. He is arrogant, he is greedy, and he is passionately, deeply in love with 3 things: hunting helpless animals, money, and the sound of his own perfectly manicured voice. He's Wallace's rival for the affection of the lovely Lady Tottington, but let's be clear, he doesn't care about her at all. He just wants her massive fortune. His entire personality is built around looking down on everyone else and getting what he wants, no matter the cost. While Wallace and Gromit are trying to humanely deal with the town's rabbit problem, Victor's solution is to shoot everything. He's constantly trying to shoot innocent rabbits, even when Lady Tottington begs him not to. That's animal cruelty. An easy 3 months. He points his gun around like it's a toy, which is reckless endangerment. A solid 4-year offense. He even chops down one of Lady T's trees without a license. Oh, is that tree yours? I thought it was just standing there. But his true evil shines through when he discovers Wallace's secret. Wallace is the were-rabbit. Does he have a moment of shock or pity? No. He sees it as the perfect opportunity to get rid of his rival for good. He gets his hands on golden bullets and sets out to hunt Wallace down. This is premeditated, first-degree attempted murder. That's a life sentence, buddy. He also imprisons Gromit in a cage, pins Lady Tottington down with a rake, and causes a whole lot of mayhem that results in a plane crash. Victor is a classic villain driven by greed and a massive ego. He gets his comeuppance when Gromit dresses him in a giant bunny costume, and he gets chased out of town by an angry mob. A perfect end for a bully who thought he was a big shot hunter. Here's hoping his toupee gets eaten by a real rabbit. 5. Mrs. Tweedy. Now we are officially entering the big leagues of evil. Kicking off our top 5 is the cold and calculating Mrs. Tweedy from Chicken Run. On the surface, she's just a farmer's wife trying to make a living, but underneath that apron beats a heart of pure, frozen greed. Mrs. Tweedy is one of the most genuinely intimidating villains Aardman has ever created. She is ruthless, manipulative, and absolutely dripping with sardonic wit. She runs her farm and her marriage with an iron fist, constantly bullying her bumbling husband, Mr. Tweedy. The way she treats him is straight up abusive, hitting him with clipboards, throwing hot pies in his face, and literally kicking him. That's assault and sexual assault, earning her fines and a few months in jail. Mr. Tweedy, why are you still breathing? Get back to work. But her real crimes are against the chickens. To her, they are egg-laying machines that aren't productive enough. When she gets the idea to buy an automatic pie machine, her evil plan escalates to a terrifying new level. She's going to turn them all into pies, and we're talking about 505 chickens here. This is planning a mass animal execution, which would get her business shut down and land her in prison for 3 years. She's so narrow-minded and logical that she completely underestimates the chicken's intelligence, brushing off her husband's warnings like they're just another fly buzzing around. The chickens are revolting, precisely. When the chickens make their daring escape in their handmade airplane, she goes completely berserk, chasing them with an axe. That's more animal cruelty right there. The fact that her pie machine is so shoddily installed that it could explode at any moment is just reckless endangerment. Another 5 years for her. Mrs. Tweedy's final defeat, being blown up by her own pie machine and then buried under a barn door by her long-suffering husband, is one of the most satisfying villain takedowns of all time. Let's hope her next career involves less poultry and more therapy. 4. Preston. At the number 4 spot is a villain who proves that man's best friend can become man's worst nightmare. I'm talking about the rogue cyberdog, the sheep-napping Terminator, Preston from A Close Shave. Preston starts out as a seemingly loyal robot dog, created to help with a wool factory. But after his creator passed away, something in his circuits went very, very wrong. Perhaps he watched too many documentaries on sustainable dog food practices and got some ideas. He starts by breaking and entering Wallace and Gromit's house to steal the blueprints for Wallace's Knit-O-Matic machine. He wants to build his own version, the Mutton-O-Matic, for a truly diabolical purpose, to shear sheep and then mince them into his own brand of dog food. This is horrifying. He is kidnapping and murdering sheep for profit. That's a life sentence right there, for a dog food company. Who knew the pet food industry could be so cutthroat? But perhaps his most heinous crime is what he does to our beloved Gromit. When Gromit discovers his evil plot, Preston frames him for the sheep killings. That is a frame-up of the highest order, an easy 2 years on top of everything else. Oh, little old me? I'm just a fluffy-wuffy robot dog. It was that shifty beagle. With Gromit out of the way, he has free rein to manipulate the clueless Wallace. The copyright infringement alone for stealing Wallace's invention would cost him 10 years and $250,000. During the chase scene, he drives recklessly, adding more fines and points to his non-existent license. In his evil factory, he attempts to murder both Wallace and Wendelene by trying to push them into his own gruesome machine. That's 2 counts of second-degree attempted murder, earning him 2 life sentences. Preston only gets defeated when he's sucked into his own contraption and crushed to pieces. Serves him right for trying to turn adorable sheep into kibble. Talk about a rough day. 3. The Toad. Leaping into our top 3 is the Toad from Flushed Away. This guy is a Shakespearean-level tragedy of a villain, if Shakespeare wrote about amphibian mob bosses and toilet tsunamis. He was once the beloved pet of Prince Charles, living a life of luxury in Buckingham Palace. He probably had his own tiny crown and everything, but it all came crashing down when he was replaced by a pet rat and unceremoniously flushed down a toilet into the sewers. This single event filled him with a burning, all-consuming hatred for all rodents. My life was perfect, and then the porcelain throne of betrayal. He rises from the depths of the sewer to become a crime boss, a leader of a gang of hench rats, which is ironic since he hates them so much. It's like a vegan running a butcher shop. The Toad is a complex character. One minute, he's a sophisticated art collector, bonding with Roddy over their shared love for British memorabilia. The next, he's a raving madman ready to freeze his enemies solid. And speaking of freezing, let's look at his collection. He has a chamber with 20 frozen people in it. We have to assume they aren't alive anymore, unless they're just really committed to cryogenics. That is 20 counts of second-degree murder, which lands him 20 life sentences. His henchmen commit burglary and grand larceny on his orders, and he has no problem ordering the false imprisonment of Roddy and Rita. He even attempts to murder his own henchmen, Spike and Whitey, by freezing them, adding 2 more attempted murder charges to his list. Oh, you thought you were loyal? Sorry, you're just chilling out. But all of that pales in comparison to his master plan. His ultimate goal is to use a master cable to open the city's floodgates during halftime of the World Cup final. The resulting tsunami from millions of flushing toilets would wipe out Retropolis, killing every single rat in the city. This is terrorism on an unimaginable scale. That's a death sentence, no question. He is, without a doubt, one of Aardman's greatest and most terrifying masterminds. Good thing he got flushed away to where the sun don't shine, literally. 2. Feathers McGraw. In the runner-up spot, we have the villain who proves that silence is golden and also incredibly deadly. He's a criminal mastermind, a master of disguise, and a stone-cold psychopath, all wrapped up in the body of a penguin. The one, the only, Feathers McGraw. This penguin is the arch-nemesis of Wallace and Gromit for a reason. He first appears as a simple lodger, but he quickly pushes Gromit out of the house, playing loud music and monopolizing Wallace's time. This is psychological warfare. Oh, you wanted to sleep? Too bad, it's accordion time. Once Gromit is gone, Feathers reveals his true colors. He modifies Wallace's techno trousers, turning Wallace into an unwilling remote-controlled puppet for his master plan, stealing the priceless blue diamond from the city museum. This involves kidnapping, trespassing, and grand larceny, racking up sentences of 7 years, 3 months, and 25 years, respectively. When Gromit tries to stop him, Feathers pulls a gun and traps him and Wallace in a wardrobe. That's false imprisonment times 2. Feathers ends up escaping from prison and takes over the entire zoo, enslaving the animals to run a diamond mine. Yes, I'm a penguin, and yes, I'm your new boss. Get digging. But his ultimate act of villainy comes years later in Vengeance Most Foul. He hacks Wallace's inventions to frame him for the theft of the blue diamond, a diamond it turns out Feathers had successfully stolen years ago and replaced with a turnip. He is a nearly flawless tactician who is only ever outsmarted by Gromit. He's got the brains, the stealth, and the ability to look completely innocent while planning world domination. This penguin gives me more chills than an Antarctic ice bath. First, Piella Bakewell. And here we are, the #1 spot, the absolute best Aardman villain, the most terrifying, the most personal, the most chillingly evil character they have ever created. It's the Bako-like girl herself, Piella Bakewell from A Matter of Loaf and Death. Forget robot dogs, forget genocidal toads, forget mastermind penguins. Piella is a serial killer. Her backstory is tragic. Sure, she gained weight and lost her modeling gig, but that in no way excuses her actions. It's like saying, I got a bad haircut once, so now I'm going to commit a dozen murders. This event filled her with a murderous rage directed at a very specific group of people, bakers. She pretends to fall in love with bakers, charms them, and then, when they least expect it, she murders them. When we meet her, she's already killed 12. That is a serial murder charge, which carries an automatic death sentence. She is aiming to complete a baker's dozen by making Wallace her 13th victim, but thankfully, Gromit sees through her saccharine facade. Piella is cruel to her own dog, Fluffles, animals, slapping her and treating her horribly. That's animal cruelty. When Gromit gets too close to the truth, she bites her own arm and blames him, manipulating Wallace into punishing his loyal companion. "Oh, Wallace, look! Your dog attacked me. Clearly he's jealous of our love. Bake me another pie, darling." But her final plan is to bake a cake for Wallace with a bomb inside of it. That is use of explosives on top of first-degree attempted murder, adding another 20 years and a life sentence to her record. When her plan is foiled, she grabs a wrench and attacks Wallace and Gromit. It's only thanks to her abused dog Fluffles that they survive. Piella is, without doubt, the most horrifying, most effective, and all-around best villain in the entire Aardman universe. She is defeated when her own weight causes her to fall from a hot air balloon into a crocodile pit at the zoo, a brutal end for a truly brutal character. You know you're bad when even the crocodiles are like, "Yeah, she deserved that."